Perfect. Perfect. Hello, everyone. This is Lisa with Inspired Heart Intuitive, here to help you live a spirit-led, whole and healed, peaceful and prosperous life. And as promised, we have my very good friend Jeremy Anacker with us tonight, and we're two of the nature of the aura. Hello, Miss Heather. How are you, hon? Glad to see you. So as moderator, I put already up in the chat, if you can, please copy that. Awesome. So we're letting the channel kind of fill up a little bit, but we're going to start right in, and we're going to go over of what we talked about the last time, just kind of to recap. And I'm going to turn my phone on so I can see the chat. You're in Tucson. Wonderful, sweetie. I'm so glad you made it there. So glad. Okay, why don't we just kind of go over a little bit of what we talked about the last.
Well, I love to go over kind of these layers of who we are, and this is kind of one of my favorite images to start with. The knowledge that there's this physical aspect to us,
yeah,
and we know about the biology. So you have here that's being honored by the physical body and the nervous system and whatnot in there. And then he has here the 7 main chakras. And it doesn't end there, because we have meridians going through the body, which maybe is more easily seen in this. So we have meridians going through the human body, and that's electromagnetic energy. The physical body is also energy if you study physics, or you can just go over briefly what Albert Einstein proved, E equals mc squared. So everything is, and here's a bit of radiance there. So he's hinting at this bit greater aspect of who we are, this electromagnetic energy. Last week we were going over that the body is inside of what you are, and that is just a profound thing to meditate on. The body is inside of who I am. I just, one of my favorite things to say, I think I say it constantly, but I have an aura image done by a friend of mine, my teacher, Larry Borth, and this is focused on the ideal self. So this is underneath conditioning. So we're born to the world in innocence, and somewhere along the line we start learning things, learning limitations and different things of culture, so that we fit in within this world. And what that amounts to is we learn conditioning, and we learn to doubt ourselves, we learn to please others, we learn all kinds of crazy stuff.
Right.
And that amounts to cloud cover. And some people, maybe in the middle of their life, succeeding isn't everything, or whatever. And they decide to look at who they are spiritually and see through cover as one potential scenario at work. And so underneath the cloud cover is this radiant self, and it represents that potential in us. But we all have an energy field around us, and we're kind of focusing in on that. And I how those patterns work. I watch people's energy fields, and I tell the story of how energy changes. Later, I was speaking to how, as we're dialoguing from the beginning to 10 minutes, our energy fields are changing. And it's a show for me. I can get quite distracted. So it's taken me years to be able to do this kind of thing on one corner of my eye, but focus in on what I'm presenting and trying to share this transformative stuff. So seeing or being with the fact that I'm energy establishes that I'm to reflect on any time from neck down, from an energy state. So I can learn things about spiritual growth, I can learn things about religion, and I can recite them. but that doesn't amount to having it come to life or be alive in me. What I sometimes watch for is when someone speaks, does it feel flat? Does it feel like it's real for them? They're saying a bunch of nice things, but do they believe it? Is it alive in their energy field? And I not only ask myself if it feels or if I hear it as ringing true, but I often see if their energy field is ringing true or if it's on, if it's alive in different ways. So that's just one thing I process through the day as a person who watches energy fields. I used to kind of high energy fields, and now I go public with it as long as there's a purpose. So rather than focusing on being a sideshow, basically,
That's good.
stay with the context of energy, what it's all about as far as related to thought, and how this context can inspire or create a cogent set of mirrors so that we can be greedy of changing and becoming new.
So if we're talking about that, then if we're talking about that we are, our aura is, that's who we are at our core, the physical being within that. The nature of that energy when we are born into this world from our mother is all of the energy, negative, positive, what have you. Is that then somehow is it somehow transferred to us? Is it that true clever? How does that play into the nature of our aura?
Oh, so you have this energy field around the body, and according to what's going on in perception, it changes shape and color. So in our innocence as infants, we don't really grab on objects or thoughts so much. So it's very much just open style awareness.
Right.
And at some point we do start to recognize our name or our mother and certain things. So as that identity crystallizes, more objects in the energy field. So it's the same God energy field, the great God source playing around the body, but it just shapes according to perception or how thought is presented. You know, what a person's thinking. So, later in life, if you have, the same type of thinking every day, it crystallizes in more permanent fashion.
Right.
So if you're a deeply resentful person, it creates a dark, heavy color. And if you do that every day, that heavy, resentful pattern,
right,
then it crystallizes as a heavy weight in the field, and makes it smaller. Yeah, it brings the energy down in vibration. It's a profound study. We have 40 to 60,000 thoughts a day. So I can't begin to figure out what's going on, and because on every level, I do look for certain things. I think you picked up one of our books,
yes,
and took a look at that.
Yeah.
So I look for certain things with the energy field, but basically it's powerful just to reflect on how much is in short periods of time, how much our energy fields move around, and it's correlative in many ways to the feelings we have, how we feel,
right,
in the body, emotions and whatnot. But we're looking at also a context that's affected by the mental state, how much connection a person has to their greater nature, their spirit. Are they dedicated to that?
Right.
Dedicated to that.
So then our aura, since it's energy, it's like kind of this energy field that we're basically walking around in, right?
Sure.
Around in on a constant basis. Our energy fields come into connection or into the room with other energy fields and play, right? So how, and then if we understand that, then in the nature of our aura as energy. How does one, we talk a lot, I hear a lot of people, and I've talked about a lot about this, about spiritual defense, like, keep all that. How does one do that quite naturally while allowing oneself to be involved day to day?
Well, as I've seen who I am and looked through the layers, I've had some help. And some of the signposts that I've had along the way, I give, help me so much.
Right.
And so one of the things I was given is to look past being affected by all the dark stuff around me, and the power inside that it can be influential and be a causal force in any environment. And the principle, when you turn light on in a dark room, where does the darkness go? So anytime I'm thinking in terms of I'm by someone else's energy field, I call that victim consciousness.
Yeah.
So how you experiencing being caused by you, I'm, and to get lost, if I get lost in that, I'm in victim mode. I am human, so I do get tangled, and I have to work on myself after some interactions. I have to unpack. And yes, there are people that have heavy and negative energy fields that do affect me, but I have a deep awareness just on undoing myself and managing my energy flows instead of protecting myself, because the idea of holds in mind that you can harm me and I'm subject to how I'm thinking.
That is really powerful. I've got to stop right there, because we need to sit with that for a second, because we talk a lot on this channel about toxic relationship recovery.
Sure.
About take your power back, and that is the very essence of it, isn't it? It's you're not allowing, I choose not to allow you to affect me negatively. I'm making the conscious choice.
Right. And the whole context is a big study, if you ask me, because I think we mentioned this last visit. When I'm tangled close to me, and even if it takes a couple of days to untangle from the sense of being wounded by that person or whatever, that I'm seeing who I am in this dance and untying the tangle, even if it takes a while to do so, because I'm something about me and how to not be tangled again. And I think what you must work with is simply having a commitment changes my whole field. And I think that it's very important, and it's powerful to note that what's in, discover it and use it, is more powerful than we could ever imagine. And we're just lost in the cultural milieu that says that I'm a billiard ball in this mess and I'm going to get knocked around all the time. And I'll say that's true as long as you're subject to that and that way of being,
right,
in thought. I still have to work at what I'm saying, and that's one of my motivators here and talk about it, because it brings it back up for me,
right,
to work on this. Right. So I insist on not being a victim, and I think sometimes people kind of discover they can pick up on energy, they're sensitive, and then that's kind of the end. Now they're just kind of talking about how there's all these different negative people around them, and they're consistently, and it doesn't seem to be a lot more information for people than that. Well, I tell you what, I'm the guy giving more information than that.
Right. And no, people just walk around and they say, oh, okay, well, I walk into this crowded room. You hear this all the time.
Sure.
I hear this all the time. I walk into this crowded room, I pick up on everybody, right, and I can't be in that crowded room. So it's as if, I'll tell you what I think too, is that when people do that, they deal with themselves. It is much easier to be able to say, oh, I can't actually walk in the actual path
Right.
because I'm still so injured. I haven't healed anything in here.
Right.
It's so much easier for the healer to heal outside than to heal thyself.
Right. You know, this is deep. And I guess got to say, this class, what we're doing here, every day for 20 years, and there'd still be someone going, what are they saying? Or they wouldn't see the value in it, or they just not going to bother with it. So, yes, and we do have this immense power, and how do we turn that on? How does that come to life? And we'll resort to thinking that there's these traditions, like there's meditation and there's yogas, and there's different things people have helped me come in touch with the fact that I am an energy body. And it's what a great thing that I get to go out there and talk about this power that's in us and contemplate myself.
Right.
So contemplation is, in a way, a form of meditation. I think it's been undervalued, underrated. So statements in a lot of the books I read and from my teachers and from friends, and I'm experiencing it from you sitting next to you. I got her going, and her energy field just shot up about 20 notches, and I'm having a hard time keeping myself, but yeah, we have this power in us that when we trust it's there and speak as if it's true,
yes,
and live it,
yes,
it turns on. The charges run through my body. I mean, I feel it.
Yes.
And I think that we've earned that, or like we've worked at something in us that and we've kept committing to it, and it turns on. Everybody has that in them. And it's are you that kind of person going to do the work to make sure that it's foremost enough for you to have a break from common conditioning?
Yes. Yeah.
It's this type of individual that is growing. So there's more people like you. And I might say it's like 0.001% of the population used to be an audience. Now it's moved all the way up to 0.1.
But it is growing, right? Because we're finally coming into the time period where we understand you had to have, at least from my world, and I don't know about the spiritualist world, but in my world you had to have somebody ordain you, and you had from on high say, oh yes, you are allowed to walk in the spiritual power, in the actual essence of who you are. And we needed some validation from some outside person,
right? And
I'm really excited for when we get to take, because we'll begin to talk about what happens when you take God out of that box and when you let yourself out of that box. I think that's even more so. So we begin to let ourselves out of this box and allow ourselves to truly be our true, authentic person, and not trained by what this physical body says that we are, or that people say that we are. Right?
Yeah. So we're going to talk about what happens to the aura when someone moves from a more Christian point of view into what I'm calling self-actualizing or becoming awakened. So does that mean that Christians are never awakened, or that in Christianity find that awake space? And I want to say absolutely not. It's a messy thing to say, but I need to talk about it. It's a very messy thing to say. But I have a friend who is a Dominican sister, and she's the type of person in that organization that notices that one person out of 800 that's in the with her because it's all about direct contact with that divinity.
Exactly.
And they're like, oh, there they are. And not knowing that they're both one of those, but they're saying to each other by looking at each other and going, hi, they're saying you're into direct contact and being uplifted by this power more than you are into the dogmas and the structures of religion.
You're acknowledging we're both in communion with God, with Spirit, with Creator. But then, so I want to bring that back though to the nature of who we are is this energetic light being that is put sometimes under, and put underneath this cloud because of life and conditioning.
And we agree, and it's understandable to survive within this world, as it is.
Yes.
So you could say that generally we're out to kind of fit in this of ideas,
right,
and trade and interact within that, and that's what everybody understands.
Correct.
So and pretty young in life, while I did that, I started looking beyond that band. I started looking at a larger spectrum, and expanded beyond. The more people seemed constricted in that band, and I had to find my relationship with them. And that's a tough journey that I offer fellowship with to help people find themselves within of waking up to more. But yes, so even in the more therapeutic or the more cool world, there's a lot of awareness about how we did things to cope, and then our lives changed where we didn't need those coping mechanisms, but we're still using them.
Yes, and that's
now
the
you're safe.
Energy work.
Yeah,
that's the basis of energy work. When we do energy work and we talk about looking through, I don't need this construct anymore. I don't need to protect myself from this feeling that person. As a child, I needed to because of what was going on, but I don't need that anymore as a child, as an adult. So now that I'm an adult, if I can get past that point, then I truly become empowered. And that's when people cannot victimize you. We talk about not allowing people to victimize you because you're finally putting yourself first, but not in a selfish way.
Spiritual selfishness,
yes,
is critical.
yes.
I find myself getting lost and trying to please people around. Oh, there I go again. I did that. I got to back up and ask who I really am. And who I really am is about everybody. It really is. But not pleasing everybody. Not everybody's going to be happy. There's a big difference. And in the truth of life is we have to get past ourselves, things that are personal, to get to this unity space. And this more ideal energy field is all about that unity space, the true win-win situation. And if I'm deeply contemplated within my life, I find that space, that true nature, and it guides me in how to live and act. Let's be clear, the things I'm speaking to, I realized I had to work on them in a very focused way. So
even him.
So if anybody thinks that this guy is there and I'm not, that would be so ridiculous. The truth is, I just know about this whole thing enough to say to myself, conditioning has got you, Jeremy. It really has you. Now it's time to dedicate yourself to the spirit within and its truth. Truth of divinity. And to really do what it takes to have some access to that.
To access to the divinity within.
And I experience through the body and the field when I do that work. And it's a gift I've given myself through lots of work and years of dedications. but it doesn't make me immune to my ego, to different things in the day, feeling tangled.
Right.
It doesn't make me immune.
Right.
So these are principles to bring up that really help me a lot. And I notice how they help others. And obviously you're working on this with me.
So then kind of to sum it up, this aura defense is actually the best defense is an offense, right? It's personal growth, your own personal being in touch with and developing your true self, then it helps you to recognize that other people cannot victimize you, or other people's energy can't just come on in unless you allow it.
Yeah.
Unless you allow it to happen.
And now that we're aware that we can be programmed,
yeah,
I could easily buy into this program that's being given. I could easily agree to it.
Yeah.
And like the community I work with, women, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I could agree to that. I can't lead this group because I'm a man. I had to work at this. But while I say that, in our community, in the community I'm working with, it's obvious it's easier for women more often than men. I am stereotyping on one hand, but it's just take it with a grain of salt that usually women can just tell they are an energy being quicker.
Yeah.
We're kind of lost in our heads.
Yeah.
And so this realm of being led by women in large degree, my teacher, Helen Borth, I spent many years helping out, considerably, leader in this, and mostly because her intellect didn't get in the way.
Yes.
She really didn't allow it.
Right.
I'm a teacher, and she was a music teacher, so it wasn't an intellectual profession. Mm-hmm. And so it was about living in this energy and leading the tone and pulling people together. She was all about that, and she somehow knew how to do that from her. And that's what I valued the most from her, and she's changed my life. And I do see energies, and I am very sensitive. But yes, even I can lead in this community, being a man, and it's not a limitation.
Right. But also, so reprogramming concept, because this is something that you and I have worked on a lot. This concept of we're programmed to believe that we can only do or go like that. Our birthright. There was something that I remember was spoken one time, that our birthright is not what we have for it to be earthly.
Right.
That birthright is actually the spiritual and infinite birthright that we've carried with us throughout the ages. And it is not whatever this third dimensional has programmed us or presented us with. And when we can get out of that, again, the nature of our aura, if we still live in that third dimensional oppression, then our energy never breaks out.
Right. Yeah. So the idea of birthright helps someone not to the program that you have to wait for someone's approval to be divine, or the A-OK.
Right. Right.
And
you can only be divine to this, like you can't be like this divine. You can only be this divine. Right. Because you're not sitting up on the pulpit. You can't only here.
Right. I've been kicking myself for giving away some of my history books, most enlightening things I've read in history, where the history of the church. For the first 300 years after Jesus, it was just ecstatic power. Just was just available anytime they talked about the teachings or this legacy of this, God-man embodiment. Right.
We would say they were walking in the fullness of the anointing. It was they knew nothing but the power, but God, and it's in His purity.
Right. So in those first 300 years, who led that whole it was women. It was all women. It was like for 300 years. And it had social power.
Mm-hmm.
So slowly you can watch how structure kind of put men in certain positions and then
Mm-hmm.
the female influence.
Mm-hmm.
At some point way later in history, they made this deal because Europe was anyways pagan.
Yes.
So they were making deals with the pagan communities.
Right.
So they could keep some of their practices or they're used to in their society, but just kind of switch over to
the inception of the Roman Catholic Church. Right.
And so there was this last stage where there's basically three paths in the church. I think it was praying, and it was intellect, and it was direct connection to the divine.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that you could have direct contact with the divine was normal in early Europe, in early Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
And at the last phase, women were given the special role, a lot of women were given the special role, mediate direct connection to the divine.
Mm-hmm.
To actually facilitate that and deliver it.
Mm-hmm.
And they were given the okay to do that a time. And then it was sort of poo-pooed. And so the direct contact with the divine was eventually taken out. And the only two ways you could pursue the divine was through intellect and prayer.
Right.
And
right.
The only mediator was the priest at the front of the room, looking down.
Right.
So
exactly.
The whole idea that the divine could find you was taken out by your perception. You had to,
to go through
the system to get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. When in the original form, it was sort of just everywhere.
Right.
It was just
because
there.
It just was. No one questioned it. No one sought to control it. And so when we are talking, I want to be sure we're talking about the nature of our aura, our very essence. Then it seeks to always connect in a way with divine connecting with divine.
Right. And what you were talking about in birthright is if we investigate where there's aliveness here.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can sit right now and just kind of contemplate that there's this life looking out these eyes right now, and it's mysterious. If you can kind of sit with that fact. I know that I had a lot of those moments when I was a kid. I'm alive. This is aliveness. And just being was sort of a normal thing when I was a kid, maybe for you too. But we can do that as we are here. And that points to this vital space that's here that we can relax into and discover. And the challenge is be less interested in what's of the gross matter or gross sensory experiences. So we have to be willing to kind of past all these different layers of awareness and go to the subtler place and explore that. But that stuff helped me discover that this aliveness quality is divinity itself. And by birthright, it's already here. Right. Am I willing to sit with myself and contemplate and ask myself what is actually truly here and real? And more people than ever are able to just go, yeah, of course. There's this alive quality. There's this energy.
Right. And
everywhere, and I'm connected to it. Wait, I think I'm going to hang out with that until I'm totally transformed.
Right. And that's when we talk about how, I talk about how to meditate and how to get into that meditative state. And I talk a lot about how we're going to shut our mind off, but in order to do that, we're going to become our body. Because in order to really connect with the divine, you've got to shut off the tape recorder, the DVR, that's going to continue to read over and over again what you've been conditioned to think. You got to shut logic off and the replay off, because you've got to be able to do yourself. You find that the thoughts that you have sometimes aren't yours. You're like, why am I thinking that? And then you realize it was Mom said this, Sally said that, or what have you. And then we recognize they're not ours, or when our true self comes out.
Right. There's thoughts just running throughout we don't even think about them. They're not even challenged. Are they even true? Are these limits even true?
Right.
Do you even sit there and look at your thoughts and ask them, are they true?
Right.
So, that's powerful. And I think full stop and asking what's going on, neck up, and asking how real it is or if it's useful. I think that's a powerful thing. I think I've been looking at it. I've become less and less interested what's neck up. All this thinking stuff. I'm like falling out of love with it. And discovering there's this bigger arena available.
Right.
And the metaphor I often use, the surface of the ocean is about 1% of the ocean.
It's so deep, miles and miles and miles.
It's mostly stillness underneath the surface.
Yes.
So whatever's on the surface, that weather, I can be lost in trying to manage that. But I've discovered that there's this bigger context. While the surface is doing a lot of what it does, I've just fallen out of love. Some ways
about the surfacey stuff. Yes. Yes.
And I've fallen more in rapport with that depth that's in us.
Right.
And I'm less affected. So when you know that 1% of the ocean is the surface, and the 99% is when we contact those depths, don't be surprised if you're sort of could care less that there's a person in the room.
And that does, when you do find that stillness, when you find that depth, if you think about it, on the surface is where all the storm, everything goes like haywire on the surface. When you go, the further you go down, the further you actually go up, because the further you go, the more you get into that still water. It's a gentle current that carries you, or sometimes a strong one. That life right along with it as it's going around and washing over the earth itself. Those life forms don't care about what the typhoon that's happening on the top.
Right.
They don't care about that hurricane. They're completely unaffected by it.
So the greater part of you is deeply unaffected.
Right.
The surface part of me is often very affected.
Right.
And there's drama in my life. I'm not going to sit here and go, I am so perfect. And you guys have to arrive to this point that I've accomplished. Come sit at my feet. Definitely not able.
Yeah.
And the fact is, again, while things happen in my life, I have a lifestyle where I deeply contemplate this larger perspective about who we are. And yes, it framed very simply. Here's the body. It's a small part of the overall nature. It's 1% physical form, mind, body, organism. And the rest is this larger field. And we haven't discovered, so many of us haven't really discovered what's there yet. There are those people from those moments where they discover a ray, like all of a sudden mother can lift the car off her child.
Right.
Because, kid's going to die.
Right.
Mom has that limited nature for that moment. So a ray sparks out of her. And there are people that we know of that have arrived to this unlimitedness and have accomplished things maybe we thought weren't possible. And that's in us. Life is complex. I don't know but I'm deeply contemplative of this nature that's in me.
Right.
And I'm willing to do a lot to negotiate with it and can deliver to today.
Yeah.
So while I'm not perfectly, what is it? On top of my circumstances, I'm passionate about patient,
Right.
really making sure I'm doing all that I can to be influential in my life, to be a powerful influence, and basically to bring the light.
Which is the very nature of our aura and the very reason why we're here.
Right.
We're here to positively influence others. Okay, we have this for 40 minutes now. So I want to, I try not to keep butts in seats that long. So I want to ask questions about this nature of our aura, who we're really meant to be. And I think a huge part of this, it's interesting how it's into a lot of what we've been talking about, how as part of the law of attraction, there are those 7 sub-laws. And one of them is that the energy we give off is energy around us, right? So the energy, we have to be very careful of what we're giving off, because that's exactly what we're going to get back. We're going to, rather than just living in totality of who we are, if we're always kind of walking around with this victim, like, you can poke me.
Mm-hmm.
It at some point, it's got to stop mattering when they're poking at you.
Right. Well, body language is an indicator as well.
Yeah.
Being a young, sensitive kid, when I was young, I got bullied. I got pushed around. And I did take classes, and I did some of the things that changed it.
Yeah.
And, but I think the thing that really happened was my body language changed. Mm-hmm. The power that came from my field changed. Mm-hmm. The thought to even, push me around became less and less.
Yeah.
Thought.
Yes.
So it was some kind of strength and conviction in my energy field.
Yeah.
That was behind the scenes. I have to think about over and over again, because things really changed for me in my life. And at different points in my life, I've decided then feeling like people aren't respecting me enough, or acknowledging me enough, or giving me enough credit. I've decided that that's a reflection of my energy field and my mind. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to own the whole, go inside and change it from the inside. Mm-hmm. So I did a lecture downtown Madison here, and I worked really hard, which was normal for me. It still is, but I worked really hard to get people to this library talk. And I think it was one of those months where I was even out in the January with packing tape, putting flyers on the kiosks and that. I literally did that. And so I get a whole batch of people coming in, and there was so much grandstanding from the participants, and it was like as if they didn't even care I was there. Yeah. It's like sort of just totally went into total chaos, and all month to get this one talk, at the library. And my buddy who helped me felt that people weren't they weren't respecting me. They didn't acknowledge my place in the room, that I was actually supposed to be leading. Right. And that, at that point in my life, was a deep, vast knowledge base of transformation work. But I didn't have the energetic strength in that realm yet. And it was a huge gift. That whole situation was a huge gift. Enough knowledge to apply what I was learning to myself. Right. And I decided that this not okayness sit with and really get with. Like, if I felt it, it was a blob of darkness in my core. Right. It was in my field understanding. Right. And I caught it. I go, there it is. Right. This is not okayness in energy. Right. And that's under all this amazing knowledge. And so it's like a tree with no strength at its base. Right. And so I also got insights on how to lead people along, show up at the door, show them what we're going to do, all technical stuff but it was that technical stuff I captured after I started challenging this energy in me that was, I'm not okay.
And that is the very essence of it. We cannot change the nature of our aura until we change our belief selves. We can't. We have to believe in ourselves.
It's all a context to establish a commitment to self. It's a context, and I think there's so many different good contexts out there. And I think I have a new way to kind of look at this stuff and catch it and catch myself, and to trust there's another grow into, that's available. And that's all been a journey for me for 20 some years, moving towards 30 years. Oh, there's another place to put my foot in terms of the level of access to divinity.
Yes. Okay, guys, we're going to start to wrap this up here. So next week will be not here on YouTube, a live Zoom conference room, talking a lot again about the transformation of, we say Christian aura, but it could really be any religion, right? So the transformation of one's aura when we finally take God out of the box, when we take ourselves out of the box, really is what we're doing. So we're going to talk about that next week. Registration for that class is open. We're putting up more information on that on the channel. We're going to have another kind of like, hey, here we are. So we really want folks, space is limited for the $25 fee, but for that, you will get us for an hour to hour and a half together live. You'll be able to ask questions, and then you will be able to have that video so you can rewatch it over and over again. So I'm going to open it up. I don't know if there's any here for in the next few minutes, because if not, we're going to go on and wrap this one up, and we will then see you next week at this time, April, in the Zoom conference room. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. I see you, Shonda. Thank you, Shonda. Rise Astrology. And everybody, please go check her channel out as well. She is my sister manifester extraordinaire. Steph, thank you for coming in. I really appreciate it. Steph, you need to really listen to this, like replay this later. So a lot of us do anyway. But the programming that we've received, a number of us here that have received different programming for having a tad bit more melanin in our skin. So the programming we received over the years, this can our power and walk in our truth and be who we were always meant to be. It stems from reprogramming from within. From saying that's not who I really am. That is not who I was born and meant to be. So replay that.
Oh.
All right, guys. And on that note, all right, guys, we're going to let you go. As always, peace, love, blessings. Enjoy you today, tomorrow, and for all eternity. I love each and every one of you. And namaste, my friends. Bye-bye.
Bless you.